Moving into the session proper, it is with an abiding sense of honor that I now invite the moderator, Dr. Vishwapati Trivedi, and our 5 eminent speakers, Dr. Sumati Perumal, Professor Renato Castro, Ms. Jane Chan Gitien, Dr. Shafia Muhibat, and Dr. Chweongi to please come up on the stage. Dr. Trivedi, I request you to take over the proceedings for the remainder of this session.
Good morning. It's an honor to be a moderator for the first session of the IPRD2024. Chairman of NMF, Admiral Karambir Singh, DG NMF, Admiral Chauhan, Ambassador Sybil, who we heard a great speech, sir. It was very enlightening for, I'm sure, all of us here. As a moderator, I'm supposed not to be speaking too much. I'm supposed to be allowing not others to speak too much. But yet I will, since I have the responsibility to introduce the subject and the galaxy of very highly specialized panel here. I take this opportunity to introduce 5 of our very specialized speakers, and including myself, we are 6 doctorates sitting here, all PhDs. And so you can imagine the amount of focus and specialization that you will be offloaded upon during the session. And I'm really excited about how the whole thing goes out. Each one of the panelists is an expert on the area, not just the subject, but also the geography. We have the subject is, of course, the Indo-Pacific. As Ambassador Sybil says, it's a very, very large area from the west of Americas to the Indian coast, and depends on whether we include the eastern coast or the western coast. It's a huge area. But today's session, fortunately, is not to discuss all the problems of Indo-Pacific, but we will focus on the problems that we have with respect to resource, geopolitics, and security in the Indo-Pacific, specifically on the South and East China Seas. I will endeavor to introduce some major issues, and the speakers will present a medley of geographical perspectives. We are fortunate to have speakers from all the major stakeholders in the region, and the presentations will, I'm sure, give you a very focused 360-degree view on the subject. So let me, before I proceed ahead with my remarks, give you an introduction to the speakers one by one. We have Dr. Sumati Perumal. She is head center of the Maritime Security and Diplomacy and Coastal and Marine Environment Maritime Institute of Malaysia in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. She would be speaking on contemporary and assessed future contours of Sino-Malaysian resource geopolitics. Dr. Perumal. Then we have Professor Renato Cruz de Castro, who is the Distinguished Professor of International Studies Department, De La Salle University in Manila, Philippines. Professor Castro would be speaking on Philippines' imperatives amidst the resource scramble in the Indo-Pacific. One more very interesting subject, and I'm sure he'll throw some very interesting light on it, given his deep research and insight into the subject and the area. Our third speaker would be Ms. Jane Yin Chan. She is the Senior Research Fellow and Coordinator, Maritime Security Program, Institute of Defense and Strategic Studies, S. Rajaratnam Institute of Strategic Studies in Singapore. Ms. Chan would be speaking on Singapore, navigating the currents and eddies of resource geopolitics in the Indo-Pacific. Then we have Dr. Shafia Muhibat. She is the Deputy Executive Director of Research, Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS, in Jakarta, Indonesia. Dr. Muhibat would be speaking on resource geopolitics as a current and future driver of Indonesia's maritime security. Then we have Dr. Cho, Director and Head, Center for ASEAN India Studies at the Korean National Diplomatic Academy in Seoul, in Korea. Dr. Cho, I hope I'm taking the pronunciation correctly, would be speaking on maritime resource geopolitics in East Asia, opportunities for India and South Korea. Now that, again, is a very interesting subject, and coming from an expert like Dr. Cho, I'm sure it'll be of huge engrossing value for all of us here, especially a whole lot of people who are academically and doing research into these sessions. Myself, as a keen shipping economist and a maritime person, I believe that maritime economics is highly intertwined with the geopolitical environment. From the time of Mesopotamian code and the Roman bill of lading, which I'm sure some of the students are aware of, that there was a bill of lading in the Roman times too, economics has been indeed driven by supply and demand. These basics have never changed in the past 5,000 years. Circumstances have changed. However, the truth is that maritime business prospers when Romans provided safe passage, but it broke down when Pax Romana broke down in the 3rd century. Similarly, with the stability provided by the European empires, as has been alluded to by earlier speakers too, the liner and tramp business prospered. Later, following the Second World War, maritime economics prospered because of the Bretton Woods providing a framework. And that's when the International Maritime Organization and such rule-making institutions came into existence. The primary lesson from history is that economics will always be the same and is not so crucial for future analysis. That's my thinking, because it'll always be driven by profit. But an assessment of the geopolitical environment and its direction is the most relevant. That makes these discussions and collaborative efforts very important for economics to prosper. For this reason, our work and deliberations on such an assessment at this conference make it very relevant and very important. We are also aware that SAGAR, which is a collaborative approach with the Indian government stands for, standing for security and growth for all in the region, is a concept that encompasses several large areas of the world. Out of these, there are many spokes to SAGAR. IPRD stands out as a very important platform. Every year, we at NMF extend the debate to area-specific or sector-specific issues, making substantial contributions to furthering the dialogue among the region's stakeholders. The theme of today's deliberations will revolve around resource-driven geopolitical dynamics. As we know, among the significant issues that straight away come to our mind, as also has been flagged by earlier speakers, are energy, which leading to competition for oil and gas resources, notably in the South China Sea, maritime trade leading to strategic control of choke points, such as the Strait of Malacca and on the other side, the Hormuz, rare earth minerals, where China's dominance in production sparks concerns, fisheries, disputing over fishing grounds and resources, infrastructure, China's Belt and Road Initiative versus India's Look East policy. Well, these are the issues which we would be focusing on, and the major players, China, for example, has been asserting expansion and leveraging its economic and military power. United States has been emphasizing security and trade. India is an emerging regional leader, emphasizes economic growth and security. Japan, Australia, and ASEAN are all crucial actors in the regional dynamics that we're going to be talking about. Well, what are the major challenges and opportunities? Very briefly, because it's all been said and will be talked about more. Territorial disputes, environmental concerns, economic interdependence. Several mechanisms have been developed to address these concerns over the years, for the last several decades, and enhance the regional dialogue, promote economic integration, foster strategic partnerships, and encourage sustainable resource management. As I mentioned earlier, all these efforts aim to create a stable geopolitical environment without which economics and prosperity for all cannot happen. In brief, Indo-Pacific's resource geopolitics are complex and multifaceted, has been mentioned, and you'll see more of it coming. Collaboration, diplomacy, and sustainable practices are essential for regional stability and prosperity. This is the spirit we'll be driving through this session. I would quickly add that UNCLOS, the United Nations Convention on Law of the Sea, provides a legal framework. We already have a legal framework, maybe not very effective, which is vital to governing the use of world's oceans and resources. Its core provisions regarding the territorial sea, exclusive economic zone, continental shelf, high sea, and archipelagic waters define the principles of freedom of navigation, right of innocent passage, protection of maritime environment, preservation of living resources, and peaceful settlement of disputes. As history has shown, there will be persistent pressure on the observance of these principles as population grows and some asymmetric military and economic power grows in these regions. This is what is happening in the South China Sea. Except for the Bretton Woods collaborative mechanism, which also followed large destructions during the Second World War, the redeeming feature of the present mechanism is an early ex-ante collaborative discussions and efforts. That's what we are doing, an ex-ante effort so that it doesn't become to a World War, 3, 4, I don't know which one. IPRD is a spoke in a similar attempt to understand each other and work together to prevent any cataclysmic impact on any one state player, big or small, being able to create tensions and conflict. One of the interesting things which I thought I'll mention here. We can follow it up in later discussions at the MF. One of the key players in the orderly exploitation of underwater minerals is the International Seabed Authority, which Ambassador Sibel had referred to. This authority was established in 1982 by the UN Convention UNCLOS, and then 1994 Agreement on Implementation. The ISA, the International Seabed Authority's dual mission is to authorize and control the development of mineral-related operations in the international seabed, which is considered the common heritage of all mankind. The area beyond national jurisdiction. ISA is responsible for safeguarding the international deep sea, defined as waters below 200 meters, 656 feet, where photosynthesis is hampered by inadequate light, governing approximately half of total area of the world's ocean. The ISA oversees activities that might threaten biological diversity and harm the marine environment. NMF has done incredible work in this area of undersea mining. I've seen even a book being published by NMF on this. And I, as Secretary in the Ministry of Shipping, had handled this very keenly, and I still work a lot on the International Seabed Authority and the working of the implementation mechanism. In our future deliberations in the IPRD, I suggest, I'll bring this proposal to the DG, that we can also study the possibilities of collaborative efforts supporting seabed mineral exploitation. With these remarks, I invite the speakers today. We look forward to an interesting and a thought-provoking exchange of ideas. And thank you very much for the time, and you'll see more of me as the discussion goes on. So to begin with, may I invite Dr. Sumati Peramara to deliver her